The Otako Murderer, a vampire with a thirst for young blood. Tsutomu Miyazaki was born on August 21, 1962 in Itsukaichi, Tokyo. Miyazaki belonged to a wealthy family that operated a well-known regional newspaper company where his grandfather and great-grandfather served the town council. Miyazaki's father and mother were mostly busy with their jobs, which is why he was raised by his grandfather, who was a disabled man. Miyazaki was born prematurely with a rare defect that caused his hand joints to be fused. This prevented him from being able to bend his wrists upwards. His hands looked weak and bony. He attended Meidai Nakano High School in Nakano. Due to his strange defective condition, he was disliked by other kids in the school and often ridiculed. At elementary school, Miyazaki mastered the art of being anonymous. He was largely unnoticed at school and was considered a loner who found it challenging to make friends. Miyazaki struggled with physical challenges and often blamed this condition for his inability to achieve anything concrete. He was an intelligent student and loved reading. He had to commute to school for 2 hours every day. His loner habits were taking him away from his ambitions. His grades began to drop, and he was ranked 40 out of 56 in his class. He always wanted to become an English teacher, but his plans changed. He attended a local junior college and learned to become a photography technician. Miyazaki would secretly take photos and videos of female players at the tennis courts at college. He was a porn addict, but he soon got bored with adult porn, thinking that they blacked out the most important parts because of the law that banned them. This led him towards child porn. He turned to videos, comics, and pornography for his thrills. In the mid-80s, Miyazaki moved back to his parents' home in Itsukaichi and shared a room with his sister. Though his family's business was flourishing, he didn't want to join his father's print shop. His parents and 2 sisters had never paid attention to him. They would give him money and all he needed, but never give him emotional support. The only person who understood him was his grandfather. Rejected by his family, he had long conversations with his grandpa. In May 1988, Miyazaki's grandfather passed away. This increased his depression, and he stopped talking to anyone. In those days, he planned suicide several times, but didn't dare to do so. He wanted to retain something from his grandfather, so he did the unbelievable. He consumed his grandfather's ashes. He missed his grandfather and wanted someone to talk to, but no one would even spare him a minute. One day, Miyazaki saw his sister going into a shower. He secretly watched her during the shower, and this disturbed his sister. When she told him to leave, he attacked her and hit her head against the bathtub. When his mother heard about the incident, she told him to spend more time working instead of watching videotapes. This enraged him, and he attacked his mother as well. In 1988, Miyazaki was 26 years old. It was a beautiful sunny afternoon, and 4-year-old Mari Kono left her home in the Aruma Village apartment complex, Loken, Saitama. She was going to her friend's house to play. She would usually return home in 2 to 3 hours, filled with excitement. This day, it was 6:23 p.m., and still Marie Kono was nowhere to be found. Her father, Shige, an architect, got worried because she had never been late. After waiting a little bit longer, he quickly called the police and begged them to help him find his daughter. Meanwhile, 50 kilometers away in a thick, dark forest, Marie Kono was suffering a most painful death at the hands of a beast. That day, while Marie Kono was going to her friend's home, a Nissan Langley pulled up beside the 4-year-old, and Miyazaki came out of the car, flashed a smile at Mary, and asked if she wanted to go with him on a long drive. Mary nodded in excitement and got in the car. Miyazaki drove for an hour and a half until he left the Aruma village, stopped his car westward of Tokyo, and parked the car under a bridge in a wooded area. Miyazaki stepped out of the car with Mary, and together they walked down a mountain path for the next 30 minutes. Mary was thrilled, thinking Miyazaki was taking her somewhere very lovely, but she felt tired after walking this long. Miyazaki was taking her somewhere no one would hear her. In a feat of sheer cruelty, Miyazaki placed his hands on her throat with his thumbs on her windpipe. He pressed in and squeezed slowly. Mary was shocked and, with immense fear and pain, looked at Miyazaki. After a few minutes, she took her last breath and passed away. Miyazaki wasn't satisfied yet. He undressed her and raped her. He took her clothes and threw the body in the dirt to decompose. He returned after a few days and removed her hands and feet from the body and kept them in his closet. He burned the rest of the body in his furnace, ground it into a powder, and sent a box to her family. The container contained her bones, teeth, photos of her clothes, and a postcard that said, "Marry, cremated, bones, investigate, prove." This was the beginning of the deadliest serial killing spree in Japan. The monster was craving for more and looking for his next prey. On October 3rd, 1988, Miyazaki abducted 7-year-old Masami Yoshizawa. Masami was cycling on a country road. Miyazaki offered her a ride, to which she agreed. He drove her to the same place he had killed Kono. He killed her the same way, raped her corpse, and took her clothes with him. On December 12, 1988, Miyazaki abducted 4-year-old Erika Namba as she was returning home from a friend's house. Miyazaki forced her into the car and drove to a parking lot in Naguri, where he forced her to remove her clothes in the back seat and began to take pictures of her. Miyazaki then killed Namba, tied her hands and feet behind her back, covered her with a bedsheet, and placed her body in his car's trunk. He disposed of Namba's clothes in a wooded area and left her body in the adjoining parking lot, where it was discovered 3 days later. On December 20th, Namba's family received a postcard sent by Miyazaki with a message assembled using words cut out of magazines. Erika, cold, cough, throat, rest, death. On June 6, 1989, he convinced 5-year-old Ayako Nomoto to take nude pictures of her. He took Nomoto into his car and murdered her. He later covered her body with a bedsheet and took it to his apartment, where he raped her corpse for 2 days. He took photos and videos of it in various positions. He later dismembered the body, abandoning the torso in a cemetery and the poor girl's head in the nearby hills. While on the road, one of his front tires slipped into a gutter. He put on the hazard lights, carried the corpse in his hands, and went into the woods to dispose of the body. He returned with a sheet in his hand to see 2 men standing by the car. Miyazaki explained his predicament, and the 2 men helped lift the vehicle, and Miyazaki drove away. He kept the young girl's hands, drinking blood from them and then cannibalizing them. After 2 weeks, he felt scared that the police would discover her body, so he went to collect the remains once again and brought them back to his apartment and hid them in his closet. The police were sharp enough to link Erika's disappearance to Masami's and Mari's. They found some clothes, and the police interviewed the 2 men who had helped Miyazaki the previous day. Unfortunately, they both misidentified Miyazaki's car as a Toyota Corolla. It was a setback for the investigators, who had lost a solid lead. And even though they had made great progress, Miyazaki was still on the loose. Miyazaki enjoyed the killing, and he wanted more. On July 23, 1989, 2 sisters were playing in a park in Hachioji. He spotted them and convinced the younger sister to accompany him to the woods. He took her to a lonely place and made her undress. The older sister quickly ran home to get help and returned with her father. As soon as Miyazaki had started taking the young girl's pictures, the father found them and attacked Miyazaki. Miyazaki escaped and ran back to the park to retrieve his car. But the girl's father had already called the police, and they were waiting for him. As soon as Miyazaki reached his car, he was arrested. Police searched his 2-room bungalow and found 5,763 videotapes, some of which contained anime and slasher films that helped him commit the crimes. They found the footage and pictures of the innocent girls who were murdered. During the investigation, it revealed that he was a big fan of horror films, anime, and manga, of which he contained an extensive collection. He remained calm during the trial and confessed to the killing of all the girls. Miyazaki was diagnosed with multiple personality disorder and schizophrenia. This did not stop the court from handing him a death sentence. And finally, Tsutomu Miyazaki was executed on June 17, 2008. He was killed by hanging, and this was the end of Japan's most notorious serial killer of all time. That's a wrap for today. Don't forget to smash the thumbs up, share, and subscribe to the channel to see our latest content.